Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and world leaders are punching back against Donald Trump right before he meets with Vladimir Putin. No way, no how is the coalition of the willing of European leaders, Canada, Australia, and others who are now the ones defending democracy. They will not let Zelenskyy get bullied, and Zelensky's making it clear that he will not be bullied. Let me tell you what went down over the past 24 to 48 hours leading to this ridiculous meeting and dangerous meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. So President Zelenskyy met with the United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer following Zelensky's virtual meeting with the coalition of the willing European leaders. The coalition of the willing European leaders like Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz, French President Emmanuel Macron, and others made it clear what their negotiating position was and what they would never allow to happen with respect to Ukraine. You see Zelenskyy right here in this photograph with Keir Starmer from yesterday hugging each other. And you'll see Keir Starmer say, "Great to see you, my friend. Britain will always stand with Ukraine." Zelenskyy held a press conference where he said, "I'm just being very clear. We're not making any territorial concessions. We're not giving up land. Okay? Not happening. We have a constitution that says we're not doing that. We need security guarantees, long-term peace, and we need a ceasefire first." That's what needs to happen. Watch Zelenskyy from his speech. Play this clip.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy, as for my position, it has not changed because it has a foundation, the Constitution of Ukraine. And as long as the state's constitution remains unchanged, the position of the guarantor of this constitution cannot change. Today we discussed these issues. Certainly, these are very complex issues. I want to emphasize immediately any issues concerning the territorial integrity of our state cannot be discussed without considering our state, our people, the will of the state, the will of our people, and the Constitution of Ukraine. Thank you.
Now, here's Zelenskyy again. Let me play this clip right here for you.
In any case, the key issues you mentioned, either later or at the beginning of this question, regarding our principles, regarding our territorial integrity, in the end, it is still decided at the level of leaders. Without Ukraine, it is impossible to resolve this. And by the way, everyone also supports this.
They're powerful words from President Zelenskyy. Then Zelenskyy writes the following, and he posts a video of all of the countries and the leaders from these countries that he's been meeting with. Zelenskyy writes, "Over the past few days, there have been more than 30 conversations and consultations with partners, different parts of the world, different perspectives, but shared positions. This war must be ended. Pressure must be exerted on Russia for the sake of a just peace. Ukraine and our partners' experience must be used to prevent deception by Russia. At present, there is no sign that the Russians are preparing to end the war. Our coordinated efforts and joint actions of Ukraine, the United States, Europe, and all countries that seek peace can definitely compel Russia to make peace. I thank everyone who is helping." And I think it's a great strategy also there by Zelenskyy to almost make it seem, even though Donald Trump is not saying this, look, Donald Trump agrees with us. The United States agrees with us. Just ignore all of Donald Trump's dangerous rhetoric and kind of just pretend the U.S. agrees with this, but let's be clear what our bright lines are. Watch this quick clip that Zelenskyy made of all of the people who he's met with recently. Here, play this clip right here.
Канада, Індія, Саудівська Аравія, Південна Африка, Казахстан, Катар, Азербайджан, багато країн вільної Європи, Франція, Німеччина, Британія, Італія, Фінляндія, Нідерланди, Туреччина, Польща, Латвія, Литва, Естонія, Данія, Швеція, Чехія, Іспанія, Албанія, Хорватія, Греція, Румунія.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz writes the following. Here's what Europe's position is. Ukraine must be at the negotiating table if there is a deal. First, there must be a ceasefire. Second, Ukraine is ready to negotiate territorial issues. However, legal recognition of Russian seizures is not being discussed. Okay? not discuss any of the land that Russia invaded. Ain't happening. Russia ain't getting that. Strong security guarantees for Kyiv. The armed forces of Ukraine must be and remain ready. Negotiations must be part of a common transatlantic strategy based on strong support for Ukraine and necessary pressure on Russia. If a ceasefire is not achieved, it will be necessary to increase pressure on Russia, mayors emphasized. French President Emmanuel Macron posts the following. Excellent meeting today with our European partners and President Trump ahead of his upcoming meeting with Putin. Unity and strong alignment with our allies on the priorities. 1. Nothing about Ukraine can be decided without the Ukrainians. 2. A ceasefire is the essential prerequisite for any negotiations. 3. These negotiations must lead to a solid and lasting peace with security guarantees ensuring Ukraine's sovereignty and the stability of our continent. We all agree until a ceasefire and a lasting peace are achieved, our support for Ukraine will remain unwavering. Again, powerful words right there as well. President Zelenskyy writes the following. Over the past few days, there have been more than 30 conversations and consultations with these world leaders. The war must be ended. I talked about that before. Let's talk about what Russia is doing on the other hand. Via Reuters, Russia may test nuclear-powered missiles ahead of the meeting in Alaska today. It's threatening to test nuclear weapons because they know psychologically that's how you beat down Donald Trump. You threaten Donald Trump. Trump calls it the N-word, nuclear. You just talk about nuclear and Donald Trump's like, whoa, that scares him. Russia appears poised to test its nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed cruise missile, the NM730, before Putin ends up meeting today. Satellite imagery from Planet Labs analyzed by some of the top analysts here show a nuclear testing site, and it shows that the preparations are being made consistent with past launches. A Western security source confirmed test plans, which could politically overshadow discussion. So watch for that occurring today. One of the other things that we're seeing is that one of the things that the way Putin is describing these meetings with Donald Trump, saying that the U.S. administration is making rather energetic and sincere efforts to end the hostilities and to end the crisis. However, there's no indication of a similar effort from the Russian side. According to Ukraine Center for Countering Disinformation, Putin is preparing so-called historical materials, including geographical maps, intended to argue that Ukraine is an artificial state. These materials are expected to be used to justify Russia's military aggression and territorial claims. Critics point out that most modern nations were once part of other empires, including Russia itself, which was once part of the Golden Horde. Parts of present-day Russia historically belonged to Germany, Finland, among others. A Russian foreign ministry spokesperson reaffirmed Moscow's unchanged stance, citing Putin's past statement that Russia seeks control over all of the Ukrainian territories it partially occupies and demands Ukraine abandon its aspirations to join NATO. One of the things that we're seeing happen as well yesterday, major Ukrainian long-range drone raids into Russia were reported, with local channels already reporting impacts in Kursk. Ukraine has now maintained nearly 2 weeks of major nightly raids, with last night's being one of the largest happening in Russia. Now, show you this as well. This is Donald Trump's press conference he held yesterday in the Oval Office, where Donald Trump was asked if he's going to potentially try to bribe Putin for a peace deal with rare earth minerals. Remember that Donald Trump forced Ukraine to do a rare earth mineral deal, giving U.S. control over Ukrainian rare earth minerals. Well, Donald Trump wants to take those rare earth minerals now that he stole from Ukraine and give it to Putin. And Donald Trump's also allegedly talking about giving Putin natural resources from Alaska. Here was Donald Trump asked this yesterday. Let me show you this clip right here. Let's play it.
Are you prepared to offer Vladimir Putin access to rare minerals to incentivize him to end the war?
We're going to see what happens with our meeting. We have a big meeting. It's going to be I think very important for Russia, and it's going to be very important for us, and important for us only that we're going to save a lot of lives.
We heard yesterday that Prime Minister Carney wrote the following. Earlier, I met with leaders of the Coalition of the Willing to discuss our ongoing support for Ukraine. We are united on shared principled decisions on the future of Ukraine, that it must be made by Ukrainians. International borders cannot be changed by force. It needs to be done, can't be done by force, and that Russia can't just steal Ukrainian land right there. Donald Trump, during that disastrous press conference yesterday, what he's trying to take credit for as well is, even though he promised there would be peace in Ukraine in 24 hours, he says that he deserves credit for stopping World War III, and that he said Putin would have already taken over all of Ukraine if it wasn't for Donald Trump. What are you talking about? You've literally given Putin every advantage to be able to try to take over Ukraine. Ukraine has courageously fought back against Russia. It should be noted that Europe has also given way more money than the United States to Ukraine at this point. But this is how Donald Trump tries to move the goalpost and say, I'm the reason that Russia hasn't taken over Ukraine. That's Russian propaganda talking points 101. But here, play this clip right here.
Does Putin have a strong hand tomorrow?
Well, he came to our country, and I heard CNN fake news talking about that was a big win for him. Normally, you would say the opposite, but they said, oh, it's a big win that he came here. Normally, we would say the opposite. He came here. I think that President Putin would like to see a deal. I think if I weren't president, he would take over all of Ukraine. It's a war that should have never happened. If I weren't president, in my opinion, he would much rather take over all of Ukraine. But I am president, and he's not going to mess around with me.
So you see the efforts there of how Zelenskyy is pushing back. The efforts that Zelenskyy is making to build a coalition of all these other countries. You see what Trump and Putin's position is. And, I think you have these European leaders stepping up with Zelenskyy. We'll keep you posted every step of the way of today's developments. So come back, check back every 90 minutes or so. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Thanks for watching. Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.